Princess Hannah stood at the viewport of her ship, watching the blue planet grow larger. Earth, a primitive world at the edge of known space. Her father, Admiral Dow, had sent her to make first official contact with these humans. "We will arrive in 10 minutes, Your Highness," said Minji, her assistant. Hannah nodded without turning. Her long black hair was pulled back tight, showing her sharp features. Unlike the soft curves of humans, her face had the slight angular look of her people. "Is the diplomatic team ready?" she asked. "Yes, Your Highness, though they are concerned about safety." Hannah finally turned. "The humans have agreed to all our terms. They are primitive but not stupid." Minji bowed slightly. "Of course, Your Highness." The ship landed smoothly on the special platform built just for this meeting. Through the view screen, Hannah could see the human welcome party. They wore simple uniforms, not the complex armor of Confederation soldiers. "Remember," she told her team, "these humans only discovered faster-than-light travel 30 years ago. Do not show any sign that you think less of them." The door of the ship opened. Hannah stepped out first, her silver ceremonial cape flowing behind her. The Earth air felt strange, heavier, filled with scents her ship's filtered atmosphere never had. A human man stepped forward from the greeting party. He was tall with broad shoulders and short black hair. "Princess Hannah, welcome to Earth. I am Captain Jun, your liaison during your stay with us." His accent was strange but understandable. The translation chips were working well. "Captain," she acknowledged with a small nod. "The Confederation is pleased to formalize relations with." She stopped mid-sentence. Something large moved behind the human delegation, something with fur. "What is that?" she asked, her hand moving instinctively to the small weapon hidden in her sleeve. Captain Jun smiled. "This is Dayan, my companion." The creature stepped forward. It was massive, standing as high as a human's waist, with thick gray and white fur, powerful muscles, and intelligent eyes. It looked like the ancient predators from her people's homeworld, the ones that existed only in history books now. Her security team immediately moved in front of her, weapons drawn. "Please," Captain Jun raised his hands. "Dayan is no threat. He accompanies me everywhere." "That is a predator," Quan, her head of security, said firmly. "It has no place at a diplomatic meeting." The beast, Dayan, looked at Quan and showed its teeth. They were long and sharp. "Lower your weapons," Hannah ordered her team. "We are guests here." "But Your Highness." "Now, Quan." Captain Jun placed his hand on the beast's head. "Dayan, sit." The creature immediately sat, its intelligent eyes still watching the visitors. "On Earth, humans have lived alongside animals for our entire history," Jun explained. "Dayan is what we call a genetically enhanced canine, based on ancient wolves but bred for intelligence and loyalty." Hannah stepped closer, curious despite herself. "And it obeys you." Jun corrected gently. "And yes, completely. We are bonded." Bonded. A connection that goes beyond simple training. "My people have domesticated animals for thousands of years. It's part of who we are." The rest of the human delegation looked completely comfortable with the beast sitting among them. One woman even reached down to scratch behind its ears. Hannah had never seen anything like it. In the Confederation, animals were kept in preservation zones or labs. The idea of having one as a companion was strange. "If it makes you uncomfortable, Princess, I can ask for Dayan to wait elsewhere," Jun offered. Hannah considered this, then shook her head. "No, I am here to learn about humans. This seems important to understand." She saw surprise and respect in Captain Jun's eyes. "Then let me officially welcome you to Earth, Princess Hannah. We have much to show you." As they walked toward the meeting hall, Hannah couldn't help glancing back at the beast that walked perfectly in step with its human. Something about their connection fascinated her. It was primitive, yes, but also powerful in a way she didn't yet understand. The morning sun shone through the window of Princess Hannah's guest quarters, She had been on Earth for 3 days now. The talks were going well, but her mind kept returning to Captain June and his beast. "Your Highness, Captain June is here for your scheduled tour," Minji announced. Hana nodded and stood. She wore the simple Earth clothes provided to her, pants and a jacket in dark blue. They felt strange after her formal Confederation robes. Outside, Captain June waited with Daehan at his side. The large animal sat perfectly still, but its eyes followed her every move. "Good morning, Princess." June bowed slightly. "I hope you slept well." "Well enough," she replied. "Your gravity is stronger than I am used to." "You'll adjust soon," he smiled. "Today I thought we might walk through the gardens. They show how humans have shaped nature without destroying it." As they walked, Hana noticed how Daehan moved. The beast didn't need commands. It stayed close to June, sometimes moving ahead to check a path, sometimes falling behind to watch their backs. "How does it know what to do?" she finally asked. June corrected again, gently. "Daehan understands about 50 spoken commands, but much of what he does is from training and instinct. He can read my body language, my tone of voice, even my scent changes. That seems primitive compared to our communication technology." June smiled. "Sometimes the old ways have advantages. No one can hack this connection." They reached a small lake where earth birds swam. June took something from his pocket and threw it. The birds rushed to eat it. "Humans have always lived with animals," he explained. "First as hunters, then as farmers with livestock, and finally as companions. It's in our history, our stories, even our science. The Confederation outgrew this need thousands of years ago," Hana said. She tried not to sound superior, but saw June's slight frown. "Is that so?" he asked. "May I ask a personal question, Princess?" She nodded. "Have you ever touched a living animal before coming to Earth?" The question surprised her. "No. On our worlds, wild animals are kept in preservation zones, for safety and health reasons." June knelt beside Daehan and scratched behind his ears. The beast closed its eyes in pleasure. "Would you like to?" he asked. Before she could answer, a voice interrupted them. "Princess Hana, what are you doing?" Ambassador Tai approached quickly, his face showing disgust. His own diplomatic team followed behind him. He had arrived yesterday from another Confederation world. "Ambassador," Hana nodded formally. "Captain June is explaining Earth customs regarding animals." Ta looked at Daehan with clear disgust. These humans and their obsession with keeping wild beasts. It's barbaric. Like their primitive weapons and resource-wasting habits. Daehan's body tensed. A low growl came from his throat. "I would be careful with your words, Ambassador," Jun said quietly. His hand rested on Daehan's head. "He understands tone, if not words." "Are you threatening me?" Ta stepped forward. Daehan's growl grew louder. His teeth showed. "Daehan, quiet," Jun said softly. The beast immediately stopped growling, though his eyes never left Ta. "Perfect control," Jun said with a slight smile. "Not barbaric at all." Hana watched this exchange with interest. With just a word, Jun had controlled a dangerous predator, and the beast clearly wanted to protect its human from what it saw as a threat. "Ambassador Te, perhaps you would like to join us," she offered, trying to ease the tension. "I have better uses for my time than watching humans play with animals," Te replied coldly. He turned and walked away, his team following. When they were gone, Hana turned to June. "I apologize for the ambassador's rudeness." June shook his head. "No need. But you might be interested to know that Daehan has never reacted that way to any other Confederation visitor." "What do you mean?" "Animals often sense things humans and perhaps your people miss," Jun said simply. He knelt again beside Daehan. "Now would you like to try?" Hana hesitated, then slowly reached out her hand toward the beast. Hana's hand hovered just above Daehan's fur. Her fingers trembled slightly. "He won't bite," Jun said softly. "He knows you're important to me." Slowly, Hannah lowered her hand. The fur was softer than she expected. Warm. Alive. She felt the strong muscles underneath, the gentle rise and fall of the beast's breathing. "This is strange," she whispered. Dahan turned his head and licked her hand once. The wet touch made her pull back in surprise. June laughed. "That means he likes you." Later that evening, Quan stood guard outside Hannah's quarters as she prepared for dinner with the Earth leaders. "Your Highness, I must speak with you," he said when she emerged. "What is it, Quan?" "This human, Captain June. I do not trust him or his beast." Hannah raised an eyebrow. "Captain June has been a perfect host." "That may be so, but our intelligence suggests there is a group of humans who oppose joining the Confederation. They see us as a threat to their independence." "That is normal in any first contact situation," Hannah said. "Some will fear change." "Tomorrow's trip to the Wilderness Preserve might be dangerous," Quan insisted. "We should cancel it." "No. I want to see more of Earth's animals. And Captain June will be with us." "That is what concerns me, Your Highness." Hannah walked past him. "Your concern is noted, Quan. Now, let's not keep our host waiting." The next morning, 3 transport vehicles carried Hannah's team and several Earth officials to the preserve. It was a large area where wild animals lived freely. The vehicles had special shields to protect visitors while letting them see everything. June sat beside Hannah in the lead vehicle, with Dahan at their feet. "Why bring Dahan to a place with wild animals?" she asked. "He's well trained, but it's good for him to remember his wild cousins," June explained. "Besides, he's an extra layer of protection." "Our shields are more than adequate," Quan said from behind them. June smiled. "Technology can fail, Officer Quan. Dahan's instincts don't." They drove deeper into the preserve. Hannah saw animals she had only read about. Deer grazing in open fields, birds flying overhead, even a bear watching from a distance. "It's remarkable how many species survived on Earth," she said. "Many worlds in the Confederation lost their wildlife during industrialization." "We nearly did too," June admitted. "But about 100 years ago, humans realized what we were losing. Now protecting nature is one of our highest priorities." Suddenly, Dahan's ears perked up. A low growl came from his throat. "What's wrong?" Hannah asked. Before June could answer, a loud explosion hit the vehicle behind them. Their own vehicle swerved and stopped. "We're under attack," Quan shouted, drawing his weapon. "Shields are down." Another explosion rocked their vehicle. The window next to Hannah shattered. She felt something warm on her face, her own blood from a small cut. "Stay down." June pushed her to the floor of the vehicle. Dahan was fully alert now, his teeth bared. Outside, figures in camouflage moved through the trees. They fired strange weapons that seemed to disrupt the Confederation's technology. "Our communication devices aren't working," Quan reported. "And our weapons are failing." "They're using EMP technology," Jun said grimly. "It affects your systems, but not our basic guns." He pulled out a simple metal weapon from his jacket. "You brought a weapon to a diplomatic tour," Quan accused. "Good thing I did," Jun replied. He opened the door. "Dahan, guard." The beast leaped out of the vehicle and disappeared into the trees. Seconds later, they heard a scream. "What's happening?" Hannah asked, trying to see. "Dahan is doing what he was trained for," Jun said. He looked at her. "Stay here. I'm going to help your security team." Before Quan could object, Jun was out the door, moving low and fast between trees. Through the broken window, Hannah watched in amazement. Jun moved silently, like he was part of the forest. In the distance, she saw Dahan take down one of the attackers. Powerful jaws clamped on the person's arm. Another attacker aimed at June from behind a tree. Before Hannah could shout a warning, Dahan was there, leaping through the air. Man and beast fought together as if they shared one mind. "Impossible," Quan whispered beside her. Hannah couldn't look away. For the first time, She understood what June had meant about the advantages of the old ways. No technology in the Confederation could match this perfect, instinctive teamwork. The attack was over quickly. Earth security forces arrived and the attackers fled. 2 were captured, humans wearing strange masks and carrying the EMP weapons. Back at the diplomatic center, Hannah sat quietly as a doctor treated the cut on her face. She had refused to use the Confederation's healing technology, asking instead for Earth medicine. She wanted to understand more about humans. "It won't leave a scar," the doctor assured her, though some Earth women consider small scars to be marks of character. When the doctor left, Captain June entered the room. He had a bruise on his jaw, but seemed otherwise unhurt. Dahan followed him, limping slightly. "Your beast is injured," Hannah said, pointing to Dahan's front leg. "Just a small cut. He's had worse." June knelt beside Dahan and gently examined the leg. "Good boy," he murmured. "Such a good boy." Hannah watched the gentleness in June's hands, the same hands that had fought so fiercely hours before. "You saved my life today," she said quietly. June looked up. "Dahan and I both did." "Yes." Hannah hesitated. "I wish to learn more about this bond you have. Is it possible for someone not raised on Earth to understand it?" A smile spread across June's face. "Of course. Would you like to meet Dahan's family?" The next day, they visited June's home outside the city. It was a simple house surrounded by trees and fields. Behind it was a large fenced area. As they approached, Hannah heard barking. Dahan perked up, his tail wagging faster. "His mate Hala is here with their pups," June explained. "They're about 6 months old now." Inside the fence, 5 smaller versions of Dahan played and tumbled over each other. A female, slightly smaller than Dahan, but just as powerful looking, watched over them. "They're so energetic," Hannah said, watching the pups chase each other. "Would you like to go inside?" June asked. "They're young and much gentler than Dahan." Hannah nodded, though her heart beat faster. The gate opened, and the pups immediately ran toward them. Dahan moved in front, making a soft sound in his throat. The pups slowed, approaching more carefully. "He's telling them to be gentle with you," June explained. One pup, braver than the others, came to Hannah's feet and looked up at her with bright eyes. It was mostly white, with gray patches on its ears. "That's Nara," June said. "She's the curious one." Slowly, Hannah knelt down. The pup, Nara, sniffed her hand and licked it. The wet tongue tickled, and Hannah found herself smiling. "Can I pick her up?" "Of course." Hannah carefully lifted the pup. It was heavier than she expected, warm and wiggly in her arms. Nara licked her face, making Hannah laugh out loud. It was a sound she rarely made. For the next hour, Hannah sat in the grass, playing with the pups. They brought her sticks to throw, rolled over for belly rubs, and fell asleep in her lap. June watched, smiling. "Your Highness." Hannah looked up to see Quan standing at the fence. His face was tight with disapproval. "We've been looking for you. Ambassador Ta has called an emergency meeting. The attackers have been identified as radical humans." Hannah carefully moved the sleeping pup from her lap. "I'll come at once." As they walked to the transport, Quan spoke quietly. "Your Highness, you must be careful." "You are going?" "Native. It does not look proper for a princess of the Confederation to roll in the dirt with animals." "I was not rolling in the dirt," Hannah said coldly. "I was learning about Earth culture. Your father sent you to assess Earth's readiness for the Confederation, not to adopt their primitive ways." Hannah stopped walking. "What I saw yesterday was not primitive, Quan. When our technology failed, it was June and Dahan who protected me. Perhaps there is wisdom in their ways that we have forgotten." Quan's face hardened. "The Admiral will not be pleased to hear this." "Then it is fortunate that I report to my father, not you." As they reached the transport, Hannah looked back at June's house. For the first time in her life, she had felt something new. a connection to another living thing that wanted nothing from her except her presence. It was something she had never found in the cold, perfect halls of the Confederation. Ambassador Ta stood at the head of the conference table. His tall, thin figure seemed to loom over everyone. On one side sat the Confederation delegation. On the other, Earth's representatives, including Captain June. Daehan lay at June's feet, eyes half closed but ears alert. "The attackers have confessed," Tae announced. "They are members of a human group called Earth First. They believe joining the Confederation will destroy human culture. These are just a small group of extremists," General Hyun, Earth's military leader, said firmly. "They do not speak for Earth." Tae's cold eyes moved to Princess Hana. "Your Highness, this attack proves humans are too divided and violent to join the Confederation. I recommend we end talks immediately." Hana studied Ta carefully. Something felt wrong about this situation. "The attackers were well equipped," she said. "Those EMP weapons were advanced. How did a small group get such technology?" Ta waved his hand dismissively. "Humans are resourceful when it comes to weapons. It is their specialty." June leaned forward. "Princess, those weapons weren't human-made. Our scientists examined them. They use technology we don't have yet. Are you accusing the Confederation?" Tae's voice rose sharply. Daehan's eyes opened fully. A low rumble came from his chest. "I'm stating a fact," June said calmly. "Those weapons weren't made on Earth." Hana noticed something odd. Every time Ta spoke, Daehan became more alert, more tense. The beast sensed something the others didn't. "Ambassador Tae," she said, "I believe we need more information before making decisions. I will continue the diplomatic mission as planned." Tae's jaw tightened. "As you wish, Your Highness. But I must inform your father of my concerns." "Of course," Hana nodded. "You may use my ship's communication system." After the meeting, Hana walked with June through the diplomatic center's garden. Daehan trotted ahead, sniffing the plants. "You don't trust Ambassador Tae," June said. It wasn't a question. "No," Hana admitted, "and neither does Daehan." June smiled. "You're learning to read him. He becomes agitated whenever Tai is near. At first, I thought it was because Ta dislikes animals, but now I wonder if it's something else." "Animals can sense things humans miss," June said, "especially canines. They can smell fear, lies, even some diseases. Can they smell bad intentions?" "Sometimes." June stopped walking. "Princess, I need to tell you something. Earth intelligence has been tracking unusual communications between someone in the Confederation delegation and known anti-Earth groups." Hana's eyes widened. "You think Tai is working with the attackers?" "We don't have proof, but the timing of his arrival and the attack seems convenient." Before Hana could respond, Minji hurried toward them. "Your Highness, Ambassador Ta has made an announcement. He's organizing a traditional Earth hunt tomorrow to honor human customs. All delegations are invited." June frowned. "A hunt? That's not a common diplomatic activity." He said it would showcase the positive side of humanity's relationship with animals. Minji explained. "He specifically requested that you attend, Captain, with your beast. His name is Daehan." Hana corrected automatically. Both June and Minji looked at her in surprise. That evening, Hana couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Ta, the attack, and the strange hunt he had planned. Why would someone who hated animals suddenly want to celebrate Earth's hunting traditions? She walked to her window and looked out at the night sky. The stars were different here than from her home world. Everything was different. 3 weeks ago, she had arrived expecting to find a primitive planet barely worth the Confederation's attention. Now she was questioning her own people's motives. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. It was Quan. "Your Highness, there's something you need to know about tomorrow's hunt," he said, his voice unusually quiet. "Ambassador Ta has special plans. Plans that don't include your safe return." Hana stared at him. "Are you saying?" "Ta believes humans are dangerous. Their unpredictability, their emotional nature, their bond with animals. He sees it all as a threat to our ordered society. He plans to use the hunt to eliminate you and blame humans for it. Why are you telling me this, Quan? You've always supported the Confederation's views. Quan looked down. Because I serve you first, Your Highness, and because I've begun to think that perhaps the humans deserve a chance. Dawn came too quickly. Hannah, dressed in the hunting clothes provided for her, sturdy pants, boots, and a jacket in earth camouflage colors. She had barely slept after Quan's warning. Should I trust him? She had asked Minji. Quan has served your family for years, Minji replied. But he has always been a traditionalist. This change of heart seems sudden. Now, as Hannah walked toward the waiting vehicles, she felt eyes on her from all sides. Who could she trust? Quan stood with the Confederation security team. He gave her a small nod. Ambassador Ta was talking with several Earth officials, smiling too widely. Captain Jun waited by the lead vehicle with Diane. The beast wore a special vest with small pockets. Hunting gear, Jun explained when she approached. And emergency supplies. Are you sure you want to go through with this? If I refuse, Todd will claim I fear Earth customs, Hannah said quietly. Besides, I need to know what he's planning. Jun lowered his voice. Stay close to me and Dahan. Whatever happens. They drove into a different part of the wilderness preserve, a mountainous area with dense forests. When they stopped, Tai addressed the group. Today we honor the ancient human tradition of the hunt, he announced. We will divide into small groups to track and observe, not kill. The local wildlife. Princess Hannah will accompany me, as this is her first Earth hunt. With respect, Ambassador, Jun stepped forward. The princess might be more comfortable with me and Diane. We're trained for this environment. Tay's smile didn't reach his eyes. Nonsense. The princess will be perfectly safe with me and Officer Quan. You, Captain, will guide General Hyun's group. Hannah saw Jun's jaw tighten, but he nodded. Rules of diplomacy prevented him from arguing further. The groups separated. Hannah walked with Ta, Quan, and two other Confederation officers she didn't know well. They headed up a narrow path into the mountains. The views from the ridge are spectacular, Your Highness, Ta said pleasantly. Earth has some redeeming features, despite its primitive state. I have found much to admire here, Hannah replied carefully. Indeed, you've spent considerable time with Captain Jun and his beast. His name is Diane. Ta gave her a sharp look. Names for animals. Such a human weakness. Pretending beasts have personalities, feelings. They walked in silence after that. The path grew steeper. Trees surrounded them, blocking views of the other groups. Hannah noticed they were moving far from the main hunting area. Ambassador, where exactly are we going? She asked. Ta pointed to a ridge above them. There's a special observation point. We're almost there. 20 minutes later, they reached a small clearing near the edge of a cliff. The view was indeed spectacular. Mountains stretched to the horizon, forests below them. Beautiful, isn't it? Ta said, standing too close to her. Untamed nature, so different from our ordered worlds. Yes, Hannah agreed, stepping away from him. She noticed Quan, and the two officers had formed a half-circle behind her, blocking the path back. Such a shame you won't return to tell your father about it, Ta continued, his voice now cold. A tragic accident on your first Earth hunt. The human safety protocols clearly inadequate. Hannah kept her face calm, though her heart pounded. So Quan was telling the truth. You plan to kill me. Tay's eyebrows rose. Quan. Ah, I see. He smiled at the security officer. Well done, Quan. You've played your part perfectly. Quan stepped forward. I apologize for the deception, Princess, but Ambassador Ta is right. Humans are too unpredictable to join the Confederation. Their connection to animals makes them dangerous. They think with their hearts, not their minds. The attack on your vehicle was just the beginning, Ta said. Once you're gone, The Confederation will never accept Earth. Your father will send warships instead of diplomats." Hannah looked at each of their faces. "And you believe this serves the Confederation?" "I know it does," Tay replied. He nodded to the officers. "Take her to the edge. Make it look like she slipped." As the officers moved toward her, a distant howl echoed through the mountains. Another answered it, closer. Ta frowned. "What is that?" Quan's face paled. "The beasts. They found us." The howls grew closer. Tay's face showed fear for the first time. "Kill her now," he ordered. "Quickly." One officer grabbed Hannah's arm. She fought back, twisting away as Quan had taught her long ago. The officer stumbled, surprised by her strength. "Forget protocol," Ta snapped. "Just shoot her." Weapons came out. Hannah backed toward the cliff edge. Better to jump than be shot, she thought. At least then they wouldn't control how she died. A blur of gray and white exploded from the trees. Dahan leaped into the clearing, teeth bared in a terrifying snarl. Behind him came June, weapon drawn. "Get down," he shouted to Hannah. She dropped to the ground as Dahan crashed into the officer nearest her. The beast's powerful jaws closed on the man's arm. The officer screamed, dropping his weapon. June fired his simple earth gun. One of the other officers fell, clutching his leg. Todd pulled out a small black device. "Call off your beast, Captain, or I'll activate the EMP. Your gun will be useless. But so will your advanced weapons," Jun replied calmly. "And Dahan doesn't need technology." More howls echoed around them. From different directions, more animals appeared at the edge of the clearing. Wild wolves, drawn by Dahan's calls. "Impossible," Quan whispered. "How did you find us?" "We used masking technology to hide our trail." Jun moved slowly toward Hannah. "Technology can be fooled, but you can't hide your scent from a creature that can smell a drop of blood from a mile away." Ta backed away as the wild wolves growled at the edge of the trees. "These are wild animals. They should be attacking all of us." "They respect Dahan as one of their own," Jun explained. "Half domesticated, half wild. A bridge between our worlds." Hannah got to her feet, moving closer to Jun. "You knew Todd would separate us." "I suspected. That's why I prepared." Jun reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metal whistle. "This makes a sound only canines can hear. Dahan is trained to find me when he hears it." Tay's face twisted with anger. He pressed the button on his device. All electronic equipment sparked and died. But the wild wolves didn't need technology. They moved closer, responding to Dahan's low growls. "You see, Ambassador," Jun said, "humans never fully left nature. We live alongside it. That's what you fear, isn't it? That we bring unpredictability to your perfect order." Ta looked around desperately. The injured officers couldn't help him. Quan stood frozen, uncertain what to do. "Quan, kill them," Tad ordered. Quan looked at the princess, then at the animals surrounding them. He slowly lowered his weapon. "No, Ambassador, this has gone too far." Ta snarled in frustration. With surprising speed, he lunged forward and grabbed Hannah, pulling her toward the cliff edge. "Stay back, or she dies." Dahan froze, his intelligent eyes fixed on Hannah. The wolf seemed to understand the danger perfectly. "See how well-trained he is," Ta mocked. "Your precious beast won't risk the princess." Jun stayed perfectly still. "What do you want, Ambassador?" "My ship. I'm leaving Earth, and the princess comes with me as insurance." "And then what?" "You'll kill her anyway." Tay's grip tightened on Hannah's arm. "Perhaps, but at least I'll stop Earth from infecting the Confederation with its chaos." Hannah felt the edge of the cliff behind her. One step back and they would both fall. She looked at Dahan, remembering how Jun controlled him with simple commands. "Dahan," she said clearly. "Friend." The wolf's ears perked up at her voice. "He only obeys Jun," Ta scoffed. But Hannah remembered something else, the small white pup Nura. The way she had responded to Hannah's touch, the connection she had felt. She whistled softly, the same pattern she had heard June use with the pups. From the trees came a new sound, smaller paws running through leaves. A flash of white fur appeared at the edge of the clearing. Nera, the curious pup, had followed her father, and unlike Dahan, she had no training to hold her back. The small white pup darted forward, running straight toward Hannah, eager to see her new friend. Tai, startled by the sudden movement, turned his head. It was all the distraction Hannah needed. Hannah twisted hard, breaking Ta's grip. As he reached for her again, she shouted, "Dahan, protect." The massive wolf launched forward. Ta barely had time to raise his arm before Dahan's powerful jaws closed around it. The ambassador screamed in pain and anger. June rushed forward, pulling Hannah away from the cliff edge. "Are you hurt?" "No," she gasped, trembling slightly. "I remembered your commands." June smiled. "He listened to you. That's rare." Meanwhile, Nera circled around them, tail wagging excitedly, as if this were all a game. The wild wolves remained at the edge of the clearing, watching but not approaching. Ta struggled against Dahan's grip. "Call off your beast." "Dahan, release," June commanded. The wolf immediately let go, though he stayed alert, ready to attack again if needed. "You're under arrest, Ambassador," Jum said, picking up a fallen weapon, "for attempted murder and treason against the Confederation." Quan stepped forward. "Captain June is right. I was wrong to follow you, Ambassador. Princess Hannah, I beg your forgiveness." "We'll discuss that later," Hannah said coldly. Suddenly, Ta pulled a hidden weapon from his boot. It was small but deadly, an energy knife that could cut through almost anything. "I won't be defeated by animals and primitives," he snarled, lunging toward June. June dodged, but not quite fast enough. The energy blade sliced his arm. He dropped his weapon, blood soaking his sleeve. Dahan growled, preparing to attack again, but Ta had positioned himself near the cliff edge. "Come any closer and I'll jump," he threatened, "taking all evidence of my plan with me. The Confederation will still blame Earth for the princess's death." While everyone focused on Tai and Dahan, Nera quietly moved behind Ta's legs. The small pup grabbed the edge of his pants with her teeth and pulled. Already off balance near the cliff, Ta stumbled. He dropped the energy knife as his arms windmilled, trying to regain his footing. "Help me," he called to Quan in panic. Quan started forward, but Hannah stopped him. No, he made his choice. For a moment, Tai teetered on the edge. Then, with a final desperate look at Hannah, he fell backwards into the empty air. His scream faded as he disappeared from view. Silence fell over the clearing. The wild wolves melted back into the forest, their howls fading into the distance. Only Dahan and Nera remained. Hannah knelt beside Nera, stroking the pup's fur. "Good girl," she whispered. "Very good girl." June tore a strip from his jacket, wrapping it around his injured arm. "What now, princess? Without Ta, there's no proof of the conspiracy." "There's me," Quan said quietly. "I'll testify about Ta's plan, his connections to the attackers, everything." Hannah looked at her former bodyguard. "Why should I trust you now, Quan?" "You shouldn't," he admitted. "But I've served your family for 20 years. I believed I was protecting the Confederation from a threat. I was wrong." June's communication device suddenly buzzed. The EMP had worn off. "Captain June, are you there?" It was General Hyun's voice. "We found the ambassador's ship. It was prepared for immediate departure, with coordinates set for a remote system." "We're here, General," June replied. "The princess is safe. Ambassador Tai is no longer a concern." "Good. And we found something else. Documents linking Ta to anti-Earth groups. He's been planning this for months." June looked at Hannah with a smile. "Seems we have our proof after all." They began the trek back down the mountain. Dahan led the way, with Nera bouncing happily at Hannah's heels. The two officers who had worked with Ta walked with Quan, now their prisoner. As they walked, Jum fell into step beside Hannah. You know, in Earth history, there's a tradition of giving gifts to seal diplomatic agreements. What sort of gifts? Hannah asked. June looked down at Nera, who was staying unusually close to Hannah. Sometimes, the gift of a companion. One who chooses you as much as you choose them. Hannah understood immediately, her heart filled with a strange new feeling, a mixture of hope and joy she had never experienced before. Would that be acceptable in Earth culture? For a visitor to take one of your animals? Not just any animal, June corrected with a smile. A friend, and not just any visitor, but one who has earned that friendship. Nera looked up at Hannah and wagged her tail, as if she understood every word. 3 months later, Princess Hannah stood before the Confederation Council. The great circular chamber was filled with representatives from 100 worlds. Her father, Admiral Dal, sat in the center chair, his face showing no emotion. Princess Hannah, he said formally, you have presented your report on Earth. You recommend they be granted full membership in the Confederation. This is unexpected. Yes, father, Hannah replied. She stood straight and proud. At her feet sat a small white wolf-like creature, Nara, now slightly larger than when they had first met. The pup had been allowed in the chamber as a diplomatic representative of Earth. Many council members looked uncomfortable at the animal's presence. Some whispered behind their hands. Ambassador Tay's assessment was very different from yours, one council member said. Before his unfortunate accident, Ambassador Tai was corrupted by fear, Hannah replied. He saw Earth's differences as threats rather than strengths. Admiral Dal leaned forward. And what strengths have you found, daughter? Hannah took a deep breath. Humans have maintained a connection to nature that we have lost. Their bond with animals is not primitive. It is powerful. When our technology failed during the attack, it was this bond that saved my life. One isolated incident, another council member argued. No, Hannah said firmly. One example of many. Humans use technology, but don't depend on it completely. They combine it with natural instincts, with emotional intelligence, with bonds to other species. This makes them more adaptable than us. She reached down to stroke Nera's fur. The pup looked up at her with complete trust. Consider the threats we face, Hannah continued. The void swarm at our borders, the dark energy anomalies. Our technology cannot solve these problems alone. Perhaps a different perspective, Earth's perspective, is what we need. The council chamber fell silent. Admiral Dal studied his daughter carefully. He had sent a cold, logical princess to Earth. The woman who stood before him now was different. Still strong, still intelligent, but with a new depth to her. And what of Captain June? He asked finally. Earth has requested he be named their ambassador to the Confederation. A slight smile touched Hannah's lips. He would be an excellent choice. He understands both our worlds and the animals. Earth proposes a program to introduce these companions to Confederation worlds. I have found great value in my connection with Nera, Hannah said. Others might as well. As if understanding her role in this discussion, Nera sat perfectly still, her intelligent eyes moving from speaker to speaker. Admiral Dal stood. The council will vote. Princess Hannah, you may wait outside. The hours passed.